Welcome to That Japanese Thing. Today we're talking about our second part in the series of the new Lupin movies, but not the new Lupin movies. The ones that started in 2014 and finished in 2019. We're doing number 2 and number 3 in the series. The Blood Spray of Goemon Ishikawa and Mine Fujiko's Lie. With me today is Dylan and Yesh. Welcome, guys. How are you doing?
Hello.
Hello.
Doing alright, and you?
My week has been full of strenuous physical labor. How about you?
I'm slightly irritable today. Lots of paperwork and lots of bureaucracy has filled my week.
It's so
However,
much
I will
worse.
say-
I'm so sorry.
The preview for the animated Babylon 5
Babylon 5.
show
hmm
has improved my mood greatly. I was laughing so hard, I think I got a cramp.
I'm not the hugest fan of it, but I think the direction of making it animated really is the right way to go about it.
The style of animation and the cheese in the voice acting is a bit... It's so overcooked, it's frightening.
But that's Babylon, right? Everything was cheesy and over the top in that show. I mean,
Not
like,
the period that they're talking about. The cheesiness was only in the first season.
sure, you can believe that if you want to. But yeah, no, sure. I'm sure it gets a little bit, I don't know, more Deep Space Nine-y towards the end.
It finds its feet fairly fast.
Yeah. But, I was just thinking with, like, the rest of the sort of 90s era sci-fi stuff, and they kind of seem to want to bring most of that back at the moment.
Yes, that's part of what I find so amusing.
Yeah.
That there's this I think CEO type pull towards wanting a franchise in that area,
Yeah.
but at the same time an artistic pull to never write anything related to it because artists want to tell their own story.
But so we have Amazon who's just bought Stargate, right? So that's going to come back. We've had some hits and misses with the Star Trek stuff, but the stuff that's been really good with the new Star Trek stuff was the animated stuff.
Amusingly, the Below the Decks.
Low Decks and the one for kids. What's the other one? One with Janeway in it.
Yes.
Galaxy?
I can't remember the name of it.
Universe? Something like that?
It's something like that. But I do know that it's good, and I enjoyed the 2 seasons that I watched of it.
Yeah, no, it was decent. Very much for kids, but still pretty good. And
I
then the
suspect-
quality sort of drops off in the live action stuff.
Because in the live action, they tried to get people who have a quality of writing, and those people with quality of writing don't want to write Star Trek. They
Yeah,
want to
it's just
tell
the
their own story.
wrong quality for the show, I suppose. But
And then, obviously, Star Wars. Star Wars and its amazing
exactly.
misses
So
and
you-
occasional hits.
yeah, well, I mean, there's been like a maybe 50-60 split, depending on how you see it. It will be one way or the other, good or bad, with the Star Wars stuff. But like the animated Star Wars stuff has been pretty good, right?
Some of it, yeah.
I mean, I would say most people are pretty happy with most of it. I think people like Rebels, right? And they
Rebels
liked
has been going well.
Bad Batch. They liked what's the other one? Clone Wars?
Clone Wars used to be incredible, but Clone Wars has ended for some time now.
No, it's still coming out. There's been like 3 new seasons of late since like 2019 or something. But anyway, that's not important. But I was going to say that they did that Star Wars anime, and that was really
I was actually
interesting.
going to bring that up when we were discussing these movies in particular.
Yeah. What for?
So, back on topic to this stuff then. These 3 movies
We'll get
were
there.
actually
We'll get there.
released... Oh, okay. I'll bring it up when we get there.
That's okay. No, I was going to say, no, I think it's a great idea to maybe just hire out like a anime company. Just make your
Throw some ideas
90s.
at the wall and see what sticks.
No, make your 90s like style sci-fi thing. Just animate it. It's not going to cost a lot, right?
We didn't mention the Halo TV show, which also fits into the same thing.
Yeah, the live action one was just pretty awful because they obviously didn't have the budget to actually make a Halo show.
No. They had the budget. The graphics and effects and like The sets and everything were on point. They were the best part of the show. The problem was the
writing.
person who wrote the show didn't want to tell the story of Halo, so they didn't do that.
Yeah, okay. I kind of think, I don't know. It felt a little bit too small a world for a Halo story. But I don't know if you agree or disagree with that. But if you do an animated show, it doesn't matter what you
So
do
there's
because
been
it's going to
an-
cost the same
A
amount of
Halo
money.
animated show made by anime companies.
Right? Well, that's true. That they were, yeah. What was that?
They were
2010ish,
6
somewhere around there.
episodes.
Yeah.
2000s.
There wasn't there Soldier 1337 or something was one of
Yes,
them.
exactly.
Yeah.
Soldier 1337 was one of the animated episodes.
Yeah, no, that was
And
a
then
fun
they
episode.
had a sort of Cold War, like almost Russia spy thriller with frickin' Spartan soldiers
Yeah.
as another episode. But I want to talk about it when we get there for this. But basically, they said all anime studios, is anybody interested? And like 3 different studios went yes. And then they just put all 3 of those episodes from different studios
Yeah.
into a bundle.
Which is exactly what the Star Wars thing is, right? Each one of those is made by a different anime
So-
studio.
That's what I wanted to say. When it comes to these 3 movies, we'll talk about it more when we get there. Let's get Dylan in as well, and then we'll talk
So,
about
but
this.
my point is, just stop trying to make live action stuff from the 90s. Everyone's old now, and no one wants to stare at like Patrick Stewart's face anymore. Let's just animate him, and then they can do some voiceover work, and we don't have to deal with the realities of the fact that it hasn't been on the air for 20 years.
We won't have to confront the
Yeah,
mortal realities of the world.
exactly.
I will say-
Cartoons never die.
I could live with Patrick Stewart, but when Guinan came back on,
Oh,
oh
shame.
my god.
Yeah.
Woo.
Frakes is not aged well neither. And just imagine with Stargate having Richard Dean Anderson come back on and that character.
Oh.
He's grown a bit since the end of that show. Okay, on to our actual topic, talking about
Indeed.
the movies, the Lupin movies. So they say movies, right? But they're more like TV length movies, so to speak, miniseries, so kind of.
Each of them's roughly an hour if you include the beginning and ending songs, and they put a beginning and ending song in the middle of each.
Yeah, but they're more like 50-ish minutes, right?
Yes, yeah.
Somewhere around that sort of. 57 minutes for the Fujiko's Lie, and around about, must be a little bit less for Goemon's one. Yeah, 54 minutes.
Mhm.
So, I mean,
So,
what's nice
around
about
about
that
an hour,
is
that's-
it's really like, it's a quick and easy watch. If you don't feel like watching a 3-hour movie, that's not this, right? You could watch
Exactly.
all 3 of these movies in 3 hours if you really wanted to.
And they were all really well self-contained stories in a way as well. I didn't
This-
feel
yeah.
wanting for too much.
There's
at the end of each.
supposed to be like a little thread throughout them, right?
But they certainly left it light. Like it's on the edges of each episode, but it's not so central that you're feeling like you have to know more.
No, exactly. And there are some returning characters throughout. Obviously the main cast, and then some of the villains or the supporting characters from each movie kind of show up here and there.
But I think another important thing, which to throw back to what I was saying earlier, when we were talking about Star Wars and the Halo thing, each of them has a very different animation style and feel. It feels certainly like 3 different units made these movies, if we include The Grave of Jigen Daisuke as one of these 3.
Yeah, to a certain extent, there is some cohesiveness in like the character design, for instance, right?
Well, you say that, but in the first one, the animation style for our main 2 characters, Jigen and Lupin, was more of the comic book style that we got from the old 60s Lupin. And in this third one, we got a much more clamp style, where everyone's arms and legs are freakishly long,
People
To the point
people
where-
don't know what clamp is anymore, Yash.
Oh, that's also true. We had this weird elongation effect where the camera seems to have a fisheye almost. So whenever the camera comes in on a character, their arms and legs extend, which
Yes.
makes very close combat scenes have a different model for the characters to long shot. In long shots, they looked, you're right, fairly similar in all three movies. But whenever an action scene occurred in specifically the Lie of Fujiko Mine, their arms and legs became crazy long distended thing. I could be mistaken about
I
that.
think-
I mean, from what I remember, that happened.
Me
but
and Dylan was
you guys-
talking a little bit about this earlier off air. And I think we both said that these movies just generally tend to have that kind of thinner character model. But yeah, I think you're right. In like specifically in Fujiko's movie, it got kind of ridiculous almost.
distended quite a bit further.
Yeah.
I do think that, yes, obviously all of these characters tend towards being tall, long-armed, long-legged. But you can definitely tell if you watch the Fujiko movie, whenever there's a close-up on any character, their arms and legs are freakish. Which is
Yeah.
not helped by the fact that the villain in the third movie has arms almost as long as his body.
That's true. Yeah, he's got basically claws.
Fujiko looks emaciated whenever her, like especially her upper arms are shown.
Hmm.
That like starts to look like bone thin, and you're like, ugh.
I think that wasn't helped by the elongation effect that they had going on in that movie.
No, I mean, it's true. I was in the second movie also. Goemon is really much skinnier than he is in any of the other
In
movies,
the other movies.
and series we've seen.
I will say the second movie had a bit of a. For all that the first movie suggested that gore was a concept in the world, the
yes,
second movie had gore.
very visceral, gory scenes
And then
towards the end of
third
that movie.
once again like avoided direct gore, but it showed bloodshed.
Yeah, and just piled on the psychological horror more
just
and more and
lots-
I
more.
just want to know where these sort of Mortal Kombat X-ray death scenes will come through, because they kind of missed those in these movies.
It's true.
Well,
I-
the bit where the Axeman was carving Goemon like a side of meat was a little bit.
Yeah, no,
Mortal
it
Kombat.
reminded me of that. It's just like, I was
Do you
like, oh.
do you remember? I think from the mid 2010s, there was a series called Mystery Incorporated, Scooby Doo,
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
which was like the Ghost Actually Real version of Scooby Doo kind of thing. But it was kind of done in an anime style as well. Every
I
now
remember the anime style.
every now and then, these movies just for a moment made me feel like I was watching a Scooby Doo movie. So there's the lumberjack metal tooth guy. I can't remember what his name
Hawk,
is.
yeah.
Hawk.
Oh,
And there's like a scene with him in like a redwood forest, and it looked so Scooby Dooey in that scene. And then there's a car chase in the first movie, which just reminded me like of a Mystery Machine kind of car chase.
certainly. I will say,
With
I
chain
think
gun.
I think we can
Yeah.
all agree on this. The car chases in the '60s version felt more dynamic in a weird way.
Yeah.
The 60s version.
And then in the third one, they go to a Midwestern American town, and like
With muscle
that's there should have been a dog walking around in the background with a skinny guy in brown jeans and a green shirt, because it felt so much like a Scooby Doo movie. Ruh-roh. Here comes the Ramurai guys.
Here comes rubble. Yeah. Oh dear.
But that's just the thing I felt. I don't know. Maybe they've used a studio who does work for Warner Brothers.
Well, I also think to a certain extent it's because you're asking a Japanese studio to animate the United States. And without visiting there themselves,
But that's what I'm saying.
They have to use media for influence.
I
And the
think-
media they used was obviously a popular 70s media, which I think was fairly significantly influenced by watching piles of Scooby-Doo.
But no, since the mid '90s, most Scooby Doo stuff has been made in Korea. So I'm thinking. I wonder if there's like some crossover kind of stuff that's going
From
on.
the studios and the
Yeah.
artists. Entirely possible.
It's not the same studio they use. But it's entirely possible the Japanese studio that's being used is then using that Korean studio to do like the backgrounds, for instance, maybe.
Outsourcing, and also talent sometimes shifts studios.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's not a bad thing. I think some of those movies are actually really good, and generally the quality has been pretty outstanding, and it gets better from the first movie through the third movie in animation quality. The first movie had like that it lacked shadows, which is kind of strange in an anime. You didn't, yeah.
I think the first one in particular was attempting to ape a spy thriller.
Yeah,
So they wanted everything to be like even the nighttime scenes had like crazy good lighting in a way.
sure, yeah, like that kind of bright light they used to use in Hollywood movies to cover up like, the actors' wrinkles kind of look, you know what I mean?
But I think it was expressly done because the idea and the intent was our characters are going to be skulking through shadows a lot. We need people to see what's happening. And
Yeah.
how do you do that with animation? So they just brightly lit most areas effectively.
But it was more of a cartoon style in that, like they didn't show like the cheekbone shadows and the kind of chin shadows and stuff you
Certainly.
associate with anime.
I do agree with
Yeah.
that. It did harken back to the 70s Lupin a bit. It felt like the faces were more flat.
Yeah. And then, okay, so let's give a rating to the last two, and then we can go into some spoilers. I liked the middle one. It's in English. Apparently, the title is "The Blood Spray of Goemon Ishikawa." And sure, there was quite a lot of blood spray going on in that movie. It had it was the most Eastern of them because it took place in the fictional Japan that exists in the Lupin world.
Sort of the fictional Japanese underground as well.
Yeah.
So, Yakuza.
Well, we'll talk about that as well, I
Japanese
guess.
culturally inspired fictional verse.
Yeah, and it has like themes of Japan versus the West, right?
Certainly.
And it was the least morally upsetting of the various movies we watched.
Just straightforward murder is preferable to whatever the fuck else.
Whatever Fujiko does in any of the other movies.
Like a cat toying with its prey before it dies of hunger and hypothermia.
Yeah. So I'd say I'd give the blood spray like a good 8 out of 10. It was quite enjoyable. And then the Fujiko one, while pretty good, maybe a 7.
For me, I would give the blood spray a 7. Personally, I prefer the first one. I prefer the Gravestone's Jigen Daisuke. I feel the story was a little bit more cut and dried. They weren't trying to sell me on a TV show or anything. For some reason, I felt like in the second movie, they were trying to introduce extraneous storylines to get me to watch something else, where the first one
Yeah.
didn't do that. So the second one I gave a 7. The first one I gave an 8 prior. This one I give a 7. And then the Fujiko Mine one I give a 5 with a do not recommend watching.
Okay.
It's
I understand that. I do understand that. It is upsetting in places.
Well, for me as well, the problem I have with it is less that Fujiko's a problem, because Fujiko's consistently a problem, but so is Lupin. But the problem I have with it is that the supernatural aspect is too front and forward. It feels like it's breaking the universe. Where
Yeah,
Lupin had always suggested that they were supernatural, it was a suggestion.
Yeah, I agree.
And we have like a warlock in number 3.
I mean, they did try to technobabble it away at some point.
He's using a poison that he spreads with sand.
And he's
But where
like a
does the sand
genetic.
come
He's a genetically engineered kind of mutant. I don't know where the sand comes from.
Mutant
I don't know where the
assassin.
magic sand that curses people comes from.
Genetically engineered mutant assassin.
Genetically
But-
engineered mutant assassin who uses fruit to curse people into doing his bidding.
Yeah, but I don't
Nice.
know. For me, it felt like it crossed a line on that supernatural. Lupin has always had the supernatural thing going, but then it explains it away to a certain extent.
Yeah.
but this just didn't do it for me. This felt like they were just going for the bombastic action scene, and then words happened that should maybe help but didn't.
Mm.
And Dill?
That's my opinion, at least.
I'm conflicted about it. In overall, I didn't like it all that much. Like it, I feel very neutral towards it.
All
I
three.
wouldn't go out and watch it again. I think the reason being is that, like, it's trying to merge for me two things that don't go well together. It's trying to merge a very stylistic sort of or like a very specific art style with a B grade action, like a 90s or 80s B grade action movie script.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's trying to push those two things together. And I feel like if the art style were just simpler, I don't know why I feel this way, then I could sit and think of it as a B grade action movie, like whatever it is, like Time Cop or something, and be like, oh, okay, whatever, cool. We're just watching it for people getting kicked in the face and, cheesy Arnold Schwarzenegger one-liners and those kinds of things. But we're not really. And they miss some of those critical elements that kind of make cheesy B grade action actually fun to watch. For me.
Do you think it feels like Archer, but it's not funny?
Yeah, a little, but that's my mind's not on Archer, so because it's not funny, exactly.
Yeah.
So
it's like a plot from Archer, but they're taken extremely seriously.
Yeah. So it is. Maybe there's a bit of cognitive dissonance for me.
Mm-hmm.
So
maybe your expectations were set incorrectly as well.
Well, I didn't really have many expectations going in, other than it was a Lupin movie. So that too, but that's a different thing. My expectations are for like a heist movie.
Yes,
and for like Lupin shenanigans, and you actually didn't really get, like, yes, maybe there's some heist elements, but that was certainly not the main flavor of what we were watching. What we were watching is like something else entirely.
So the first one became more of a spy thriller, and then the second and third ones were like a samurai disgrace story, and then a like.
But again, all like 80s cheesy versions of this, right? Like
absolutely.
like not like a spy thriller as in like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, right? Which is a whole other thing. But like a spy thriller as in like a James Bond spy thriller was number one.
Yep.
Really like 80s James Bond.
In Monaco.
Knives out of
supercars.
Shoes.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Machine guns that
secret Nazi bases.
Secret Nazi bases. So yeah, I just feel like there's too much cognitive dissonance for me to really enjoy anything. It's like it doesn't really know what it wants to do. But with that said, I can completely see some people really enjoying this kind of niche fusion of those elements. So yeah, that's me.
Okay, spoiler time.
Mm-hmm.
Fujiko is a terrible, terrible human being in the third movie. Time-wise, by the way, so 2014, 2017, 2019, those are the dates of the movies. It does not feel justified that they are, quite so spread out, really. Given the run length and given the simplicity of the plot, and also the general quality of the show, doesn't feel super anime movie quality, really. It feels like, just a kind of nice episode of a show. Or like Jobless Reincarnation kind of quality level, generally speaking. Although the third one, Fujiko Man's Lie, is maybe the best looking again. And it does have some cool kind of actiony things. But yeah, so she's just so terrible. And so the first half of the movie kind of tries to get you to sympathize with her. She's taking in this boy whose father is supposedly been killed. He has $500 million, I believe, somewhere.
That he embezzled from the company.
Not for long.
Not for long. Because Fujiko has smelt the money and just to get straight to the case, she's just pretending to be like a mother-like figure to the boy, right? So she can get the password and then take the money. Supposedly, this money is to be used for some sort of surgery that the boy needs. It seems like a really expensive surgery, but it does take place in America, and I'm led to believe that that could be a possible cost. Yeah, she's just gonna take this money from this boy by pretending to be his mother. And there's a point where it becomes obvious that he's not gonna give her the password, and then the persona just kind of drops. And she just leaves and kind of leaves him to his fate, right? And then goes and kills all the problems that have come up in the meantime. In like a very, like you said, like a femme fatale sort of way, Dylan. That's her modus operandi in these series, these three movies, as opposed to the Lupin movies where she's more like an action hero. Guns blazing, rocket launchers and grenades, kind of Rambo character. This one, she's like a Black Widow, like a really sleazy Black Widow, though. Oh,
Titty shots all the way, baby. We got to make an excuse for it.
am I wrong? That's just what this movie is, right? And as Yesh said, there's this
does
weird
feel like
supernatural insert.
Yeah. So I think what this set of movies was trying to do was trying to get Lupin out of the 70s and 80s heist movie genre. Because those movies haven't been doing so well, and Ocean's 13, 14, 16 certainly have been shoveling some sand onto the style of movie. So these guys were hoping to try and appeal to a different or a new audience by giving us different genres that Lupin could fit into. And I will say, I think, except for the first one, they kind of missed. And even in the first one, we begin with a heist. We begin with them trying to steal a specific gem. And it's only on examination of what's happening in the background that we find out that something's happening with Jigen that's separate from the heist.
Right.
As a side note, Fujiko takes the gem that they heisted at the end of that movie as well.
Yeah, and like, what does she do with all this money she gets? Like, any of the things she steals at the end of a Lupin movie would set her up for life, right? She must have some.
Kind of. I'm under the impression that she like, the idea of this is the life of excess.
Yeah.
So Lupin at one point actually gets, I think he gets the 500 million or something. I forget.
Yep. Yeah.
At one
They
point
have it
he
on a
has-
table, like, and they're smoking around it.
and he literally like sets part of it on fire. He like.
Are we
He
not
just gambles and
like
spends.
crossing movies a little?
We
Oh,
are.
I am crossing
yeah.
movies.
But I mean,
Because-
but in the second movie, there is a scene with them just like
having a shit ton of money.
there's like a
But
really
they don't-
large coffee table piled high with dollar bills.
But they don't use it to live life. They use it in the moment, and then when it vanishes, there's no loss. There's no like depression from it being gone, because the money was never with them in the first place. These are not people that can have money. These are people that once money is with them, it's gone the next day.
They're as ephemeral as cars are to Lupin.
And motorcycles are to Hawk.
Motorcycles are to Hawk is a solid one. I will
Just
say I
temporary
enjoyed the
things
second
that
movie.
you burn when you're done with them.
And we laugh about that, but I do think that's literally what is displayed. Their lifestyle is super unhealthy, and they burn everyone around them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think they are ever presented, apart from like having a little bit of like a sheen to their heart. I don't think they're ever presented as like role models ever.
Well,
They are always presented as their life.
And so
burning
the
down.
in these movies,
second movie is the Yakuza movie, right?
yeah.
So it starts in international waters on a gambling boat. Because I guess technically
biggest-
speaking, gambling is illegal in Japan
Chinese
still.
gambling boat
Yeah.
I have ever seen.
But I think it's a Yakuza gambling boat, although it does look kind of Chinesey, right?
The decor is very Chinese, and the
Yeah,
Golden
it looks
Dragon,
like a
but the
floating
people running
Chinese
it
city.
are certainly Japanese.
Yeah, Japanese Yakuza, and for some reason, Goemon is working for them, which seems really below him in station. given the character we've seen in other movies and TV shows, right?
Well, he was always looking for a lord character to follow.
Yeah,
And
but
I
why a
think the
crime boss?
implication was that the crime boss was a person with bigger eyes than the world, which is why the other people in his own organization were like dismissive of his opinions.
Yes, yeah.
He was too good for the world in a way. That's why they had to kill him off early, rather than depict that.
I mean, regardless, though, it just seems super dishonorable, even for the Ronin character that he is, to be doing such work. I mean, why not?
Well, I mean,
just
to be
just
fair,
start a
we've seen
dojo,
him-
dude, and
We've
make
seen
an
him
honest
in like
living.
36 heists by this point in time.
Yeah,
if you've
but
watched
you know, he's
any-
always kind of, you know, he's reluctant to be there. But he is, you're right, he's always there doing something kind of illegal. But in a sort of coercive, being coerced to do so.
Well, I think this is also another flaw of this series, perhaps, is that they, you know, the general theme is that of seediness and assassins and the dark criminal underworld, underbelly type of portrayal.
Yeah.
And I feel like they corrupt some of the Lupin characters to fit in there. You know, they're like squashing them into a box that is not the right shape for them.
Yeah,
I agree.
Jigen kind of works, because he is kind of a scumbag. And Lupin is a bit scummy as well. But yeah, in the Goemon movie, he literally kills like 40 dudes. I know they were coming for him. But, I mean, it seems like
this
a
is the
real
thing.
samurai might have just avoided that fight.
Jigen doesn't kill anyone in these movies. It's kind of incoherent. Again, you know.
Right. Sorry. Yeah.
No. Sorry, I'm just trying to add to the point that you're making.
It's true, yeah. I mean, so, yeah, in the first one, right, he doesn't, yeah, you're right, because that guy comes back. He shoots the guy in the arm, and we see him in the third movie. So he's there, one-armed, and still being world's second greatest gunman or whatever at that point. But
He's got a robot arm.
He's got a robot arm.
From the 80s, we bring you B-grade action goodness.
But Goemon kills a lot of people in the second movie.
Yeah.
But not the guy that's going on a murder rampage to kill him. For whatever reason. Who doesn't seem to have any particular redeeming qualities.
They must be respect given, you know, across equals of the assassin sphere.
Equals are the, yes, he is an underground assassin now, apparently, and they have to go by continental rules or whatever.
Yeah. I don't
But so the assassin is this weird, like, French-Canadian lumberjack-looking monstrosity, like Sabretooth, if Sabretooth
Yeah. Metal teeth.
had, like, giant axe fists, I guess. Axe fist weapon things going on with metal teeth. And they make him just, like, the grossest human being on the planet. He just eats things and is rude. And is just this kind of walking embodiment of, like, the gross Westerner in Japan. Right?
He doesn't like to dispose of his smoking apparel in the correct
No.
manner.
And as we said, motorbikes are a disposable commodity to this human being who sets them on fire when he's done with them, with his
He has such a big
cigars.
carbon footprint. So big.
Yeah, but it just has undertones of Western excess in everything that he does. So he destroys like an entire boat to get at one target. And then he just goes on kind of like a murder rampage in order to... I'm not even sure what the goal is. It's never made clear what exactly he's doing or why he's doing it. Like in the beginning of the movie, a little girl asks him to do a thing. We're not entirely sure what the thing is, and then he just gets on motorbike 1. Presumably, he sets it on fire at the airport, and he ends up on that boat somewhere the next time we see him.
Yeah, so I think she shows him 3 photographs, and I think that's like his
targets.
His targets he needs to kill.
I'm pretty confident Lupin was the target.
Was he?
Yeah, well, he did go after Lupin a hell of a lot. And he went after the Yakuza boss, killed the Yakuza boss.
Yeah.
And I think Fujiko Mine, maybe? I might be wrong. I
It
don't know.
might have been mine, but
I didn't pay enough attention to really be sure.
But yeah, anyway, I mean, it was a cool fight, and they did the whole samurai kind of purifying themselves shtick before the fight to reach a state of kind of transcendence.
So once again, these 3 movies were supposed to define these characters for us.
Yeah.
They're supposed to focus on each individual character.
But he just kind of comes off as an idiot at some point for doing this, right? Because he does achieve like that weird state of being where he is able to see how a fight will play out. But I mean, if it wasn't an anime, basically mortally wounded in the process doing so.
Yeah.
Like he goes through this weird transformation where, again, if it wasn't anime, he would have got gangrene, basically, from the weird exposure he put himself through. He would have died of dehydration, hypothermia, and then finally blood loss as parts of his shoulder just kind of got sliced off by the world's sharpest axes.
But we all understood the point of it. Yeah, the point was that he was focusing on his art. He refused to give up on the blade. And as soon as he lost, he no longer felt like he knew what his blade wanted.
And maybe there's some subjects to he's purifying himself after his association with the mob, right? He's getting back to his purity of heart as a samurai or whatnot.
That he had lost his way.
After bathing in their blood.
After bathing in their blood, yeah. As it's his right, apparently, to do. I mean,
I'm
they're
so clean right now. So clean.
there are no consequences for these characters.
All of the Hep C.
Oh gosh. So that was. I mean, it wasn't the grossest in terms of things that happened that are icky morally. That was definitely the third one. We had like the weird child bath scenes.
Oh, yeah,
and Fujiko's emotional manipulation and general sociopathy. And then you had the weird torture of the poor demon guy. And eventually being tortured by not just the people he was made by, but then by Fujiko as well, towards the end. But yeah, I don't know. I think I like the middle one the most of the 3. Any other thing we haven't talked about?
I think we've covered them in fair detail.
Yeah. After this, we'll go on to the modern era, I guess, of the Lupin things. Which,
It's
I mean,
still
this
coming out to a certain extent, but
Yeah.
we've got 2 of the 3.
2 of the 3. We can definitely do a part 1 of it. I don't know. I liked it, but I don't think it's better than the 80s Lupin stuff.
I personally prefer the 80s Lupin stuff, and it actually spun off into a different anime called The Moonlight Thief,
Yes, you know.
which is like the son of Lupin, but then that show combined with Detective Conan.
Yeah.
So they don't bring up the Lupin connection anymore.
Oh, they kind of have in the most recent iteration of it.
Oh, did they bring Lupin back? Because once Conan became a character in that anime, they like spun
No,
it off
they talk about like the detective a lot, right? In the show. But they don't talk about Lupin particularly. That show has some things that might make it difficult for a Western audience to watch, I think. Particularly the way they make the villains look. I don't know if you...
okay, fair enough. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean. Anyway, let's move on from that. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what we have to talk about this week. I hope it was helpful to people, or at least interesting. Go and watch these things. They won't take long, and they'll give you a wrong impression of what all these characters are like. So you can be surprised about them when they come back to form eventually.
Well, you take 50 years.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
hang on a minute.
Well, a new series is coming out, which is more faithful to the characters.
They actually killed the series from this time period, from these movies,
Yeah.
and now they're rebooting to be a little bit more on form.
I think that's a smarter decision.
I think they're also doing like a in Japan kind of series, which I think is cool. Why not?
The TV show commonly dipped into Japan
Yeah.
previously. The movies always tried to go for nondescript Europe.
Yeah, but it's like a more modern Japan from what it looks like anyway.
That's going to be a bit of a surprise to me, because we've always had that '60s Japan in the shows before.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to fantasy, not Japan.
You know, it looks good. It actually looks good. They're, I think, even skinnier though than these character models.
Oh dear.
But they've got a little bit more style to them, which I think that makes them look a little bit easier to look at.
Excellent.
All right, guys. Thanks. That'll be all for this week. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.
Bye for now.
Ciao.
Bye.